It's a Thursday edition of the Locked on Sun Devils podcast. We got to talk to you about a recent interview from Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson hopping on some local radio to have a conversation about the state of the Arizona State Sun Devils athletics. We got to talk about the upcoming game tonight. ASU basketball tips off against the Colorado Buffaloes. And then we finish up the conversation talking about the Arizona State Sun Devils football program and what the offense might look like without Jayden Daniels as a quarterback. This is the Locked on Sun Devils podcast.
You are Locked on Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked on Sun Devils podcast, your home for the best Arizona State Sun Devils content in the whole wide world. My name is Richie Bradshaw, joined always by my good friend and co-guide, Conner Drios. Make sure that you're following us on Twitter, myself at RichieBrads36 and Conner at CDrios for the funniest and most accurate just tweets in the whole wide world.
Funniest and accurate? Like they don't have to just pick one. They get both?
You get both. It's just the price of admission, baby.
Well, they do have to pay for it, right?
Well, no, that's the best part is this podcast is free and available on all platforms. So also make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LO_Sun Devils, but make sure that you follow, subscribe, like, 5-star, comment, ratio,
no ratio,
share, everything like that for the podcast. Free and available on all platforms. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts on an audio platform, as well as YouTube, if you would like to check it out in the video platform and see our beautiful smiling faces as we talk everything Arizona State.
Smiling depends on the day. Those aren't free. Smiles aren't free.
Smiles are like it's
I'm going to intentionally frown the rest of the podcast.
There you go. It's freemium. So it's free, but if you want to see it consistently, we're gonna have to see a little bit of dough coming our way. So
speaking of frowning, we do have to talk about Ray Anderson, the spotlight and shining star of the athletic program for the Sun Devils.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into that. Earlier on Wednesday, Ray Anderson, the athletic director of Arizona State, stopped by local radio on 98.7 FM to talk to the Bickley and Murata show about everything that he feels about the Arizona State Sun Devils football program heading into 2022. And the big highlight of the interview, Conner, was he said he feels, quote unquote, very positive about everything so far.
Well, would you go on a local radio show and say, man, this school sucks? Who's running this program? They should be fired. No, he's not going to go on there and say that. This is
not about Arizona State.
Yes, the athletic director over at Arizona should be fired because their basketball and baseball program are really good, so that would help us out.
Not their football
but
program.
No, it like at the end of the day, like they're asking him about how he feels like he's doing at his job, right? Hiring Herm Edwards, everyone else they brought on staff, their place as far as football goes in the Pac-12. Reading throughout this entire interview, or if you caught it on 98.7, it just. He's giving his answers like he's supposed to, right? Everything seems to be status quo, but that's not what you and I have been talking about, dude. We've been talking about how like everyone's running around with their heads cut off, and we're like, we'll figure it out. This is fine. It'll work itself out. No, it probably won't. Like I don't want to seem like such a Debbie Downer about it, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure how you can truly look at the season and feel very positive about it. Now, Ray Anderson knows so much more about the Sun Devils program, even though we talk about it literally almost every day. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, right? He knows the actual players in the program. He knows the coaches in place much better than we do. That being said, it really feels like this program is almost geared for a step back. Now, how far they go, I don't know. They could be the bottom dwellers of the Pac-12. They could go from like second to third to fourth. We seriously, we don't know. That being said, very positive, just feels like, here's an answer. I'm coming on to do an interview. Here's what I have to say about it. But I don't really think in your heart of hearts, or even as Sun Devil fans, can actually feel that way about it.
100%, man. So at the end of the day, he's paid to be running this program. So if he were to have any negative thoughts heading into the year, that would be a huge red flag. So he's supposed to say stuff like this. He's paid to say stuff like this. But
Right.
we also should give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here with having some positive outlook heading into the year, because they do have some pieces that, no, let's be honest, Connor. There's not a lot of reason to be positive heading into this year. I was not being serious. So I love my Sun Devils. I'll bleed maroon and gold till the day I die, but this is not on paper a very good looking year for the Sun Devils. And power to Ray Anderson for being able to say what he says behind that big old facade that he's got going on. But I, for one, am not very positive the way that he is about heading into this year, because you don't have a quarterback right now, and you're replacing what feels like half that roster. I mean, there's going to be a lot of change. You're losing a lot of your coaching staff too, including both your coordinators. There's a whole lot that's going on right now, Connor. So while we looked at earlier this week, the schedule isn't anything too daunting outside of a game in Stillwater, and then, like a USC and a UCLA and a Utah. Yeah. The schedule's really not anything to where you're like just crapping your pants over. But nonetheless, it's not like this is a roster that I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, this is a 10-win team. No. So again, good for Ray Anderson to say he's very positive. I don't think many other people are.
Something that I will say, and this is towards maybe the end of the interview, when they hired Herm Edwards, and I've said this in the podcast before, he was quoted saying, "We are changing the formula in what we're doing." On Wednesday's interview with Bickley Murata, he talked about several times about this program has never consistently been one of the top teams in the nation, consistently top 25. In his case, he quoted saying one of the top 15s in the nation is a specific goal that they are striving for. So for them to not hit that goal by years 2, 3, 4 of the Herm Edwards era, he kind of had a lot of pushback, just basically saying that we didn't put ourselves at that timeline. It's not a realistic timeline in the sense that our program has never been there consistently. So why we should expect it to happen so soon when we've never, ever been there, he says it essentially is not a realistic timeline, at least for them. So it's something they are aspiring to. Now, I hear that. I hear what you're saying. He did also highlight the fact that the last 2 years of college football have been so different, where he feels like the NIL rules essentially kind of, and I'm using his words here, bring more of a pay for play kind of aspect to college football. So he even admitted he doesn't feel like ASU can compete with maybe some of the bigger schools that can offer some of these college kids a little bit more money. That being said, even without the money, I don't think you were getting consistently some of the bigger recruits anyway. So I'm not sure how much that's truly changing things for you. But he kind of opted with well, if we're going to differentiate ourselves as a school, we're going to prove to people that we have what it takes to put essentially your son in the NFL. That's kind of the big get with Herm Edwards anyways, and it doesn't really feel like it's worked that well, at least as far as what they're publicly saying. So if they're kind of giving up in one sense of, hey, we can't really compete money-wise, we're just going to have to do our best to bring kids in if they want to make it to the NFL, I'm not sure how much weight that actually carries with people.
Right. And I understand the whole sentiment of we've never been that team and this, that, and the other. Like, I understand that, because he's absolutely right. Arizona State has never been that team. We've said on this podcast before, Arizona State is not Alabama. And
they are not that good, pal.
No. But at the same time, the whole goal of you taking over a program should be to get to that kind of pinnacle and that kind of pedigree of a sports program. And I understand that 4 years isn't necessarily a long time, but Arizona State has been relevant the last 10 years. They had back-to-back 10-win seasons. They won the Pac-12 South not even a decade ago. So it's not like you're rebuilding a team that hasn't been competitive in 10, 20, 30 years. ASU has been competitive. So I am going to hold him to a little bit of a standard here and tell you, like, hey, top 25? Yeah, we should probably be there by now. So, but up to everyone's interpretation and up to everyone's opinion, I suppose. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and close out this first segment. When we return, we got to talk to you guys a little bit about the football team. We got to talk to you about what the offense could possibly look like in 2022 with no Jayden Daniels. But before we get that far, we got to talk to you about our friends over at Run Your Pool.
So guys, March Madness is a little under 3 weeks away. That means you need to start thinking about your bracket now, about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual, or are you looking for the best? We have done our homework, and we're running the best brackets with runyourpool.com. Along with standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers game types like Survivor or Pick X. Both are really fun in their own way. And they have options to edit your scoring, and they have essentially they offer more intel to make your picks. All stuff you won't find at ESPN or CBS. If you've got a business, Run Your Pool can help take some of that March Madness magic and play alongside your employees or even game customers. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you'll ever find. Clearly, we believe Run Your Pool because, like I said, we're running our brackets there ourselves, and there is no truer test to that. If you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, join us at runyourpool.com/locked-on. And while you're there, create your own pool for your friends and family. Enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All the rules and details will be available there. That's runyourpool.com/locked-on for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing you there and beating you there.
And again, we thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every single day. Remember that this podcast is free and available on all platforms. Connor, let's go ahead and continue to talk Arizona State football. This time around, getting back to the offense. I don't know if you've heard or not, but Arizona State quarterback Jayden Daniels has entered the transfer.
What?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast yet. So, you know what? We'll just. I don't feel like getting too much into it. I know we probably haven't talked about it, but it's okay. We can rely on our listeners.
We should at least talk about it for this part of the podcast.
Maybe. I guess.
Could be a good idea.
Is leaving, Connor. Jayden Daniels brought a lot of different elements to this offense that we haven't really seen from too many ASU quarterbacks in the past, because not only was Jayden a good thrower of the football, not elite, but a good thrower of the football with a good arm, he was a dynamic athlete. This was something that we've seen flashes of from a Manny Wilkins or a Taylor Kelly, but
sure, especially more recently, right? Recent.
Yes, but we haven't truly seen anything like Jayden Daniels in the era of football that we've watched for Arizona State. So he's gone, and you're going to have to figure out what to do with him, what to do with this offense now that he's gone. The biggest question is, how does that offense look without a Jayden Daniels?
A couple things are changing. Quarterback, regardless, right? Every position on the offense. Receivers still look about the same. You are losing Curtis Hodges, who you're going to try to replace with Messiah Swinson. But otherwise, your receiving core kind of as a whole is still pretty similar, hoping maybe some of the younger guys can step up and carve out a bigger role. Running back, another huge difference, similar to the quarterback position, using both Rashad White and Chip Trayanum, bringing in other guys like Xavier Valade and Tevin White, who is an incoming freshman. So those positions look a little bit different. You and I were talking off the podcast earlier on Wednesday about this. Offensive line's going to be very different too. When you lose a guy like Donovan West and Kellen Diesch, it's going to be very hard, in my opinion, to replicate their quote-unquote production on the field as far as offensive linemen go, or at least replicate their play. So not only is the quarterback position changing, but so is most of the offense around him, right? On top of that, you have a new offensive coordinator in Glenn Thomas. So it's no longer Zach Hill. The biggest thing you highlighted about Jayden Daniels, he's the best rusher at the quarterback position ASU ever seen.
Yes.
More so quarterbacks as of late, like a Taylor Kelly, as you had highlighted, kind of had that scrambling ability, but not quite as well as Jayden Daniels. that leaves kind of a big hole. Not necessarily that the offense is going to take a step back. It's an element to the offense that you don't have anymore, right? So when you're running a lot of RPOs with Jayden Daniels, sometimes if your receivers can't get open because either A, the receivers aren't necessarily the best type of athlete on the field, right? Or maybe the defense is just so good. Regardless, the throw isn't there. That left an opportunity for Jayden to be able to pick up that first down and more sometimes with his legs. So we saw that time and time throughout his tenure year at ASU. It's basically gone, right? Paul Tyson is not a runner at all. Trenton Bourguet, even if he is a bit of a runner, it's nowhere near what you had with Jayden Daniels. Nothing even kind of close. So that dynamic is essentially totally gone from your offense. I still think you're going to be a very run-heavy team. Even if Jayden Daniels was here, right? Whether it's him running the ball or your running backs, I don't think that's going to change very much. My question is, how much better can the passing game get? And that's going to be on the new quarterback and Glenn Thomas to figure out.
Yeah, so the biggest thing there is you definitely need to remain a run-heavy team, albeit you're no longer going to be that read option, triple option, and RPO kind of team. You can still run your RPOs, especially in a college football program like Arizona State that I don't want to call gimmicky, but it's definitely a more like current. I can't think of the word I'm trying to come up with, but a modern. It's a more modern offense compared to a more traditional set where you're just kind of under center and running the football. And I'm not saying that's what you need to get to, but you do need to get to something that's a little more simplistic and has the ability to just run the football with three talented running backs that hopefully can ease the tension off of the passing game. But you are going to need to figure out something through the air as well. And I think you're going to need to look to your spread offense once again, just getting all your receivers out there, using a tight end like Messiah Swinson every once in a while. But you mainly want to get guys like Ricky Pearsall and Andre Johnson and anyone else in that offense.
LB Bunkley Shelton.
Mm-hmm. You want to get those guys involved underneath and allow them to create with the ball in their hands. And thankfully, all three of those guys do have some ability to be a somewhat deep threat. So at least that aspect of the offense will still be available to you. You're going to have to realize that this offense has a cap on it. And there is not going to be a lot of super explosive highlight reel Sports Center top 10 plays coming from this offense this year. It's going to have to be an offense that does enough. I don't know if I see this offense doing better than 24 points a game. And that feels like a very, very good offense for Arizona State.
For this team. Sure.
Yes, for this team. Exactly. So the expectations need to be set low. And we really need to bet on the defense finding a way to step up and keep the opponent low scoring so that ASU can stick to its strength, which is running the football. Because the moment you have to get away from that, that's where I'm not overly confident in what you're going to want to do as an offense. It's not their bread and butter, and it's not anything that we've truly seen from Arizona State in a long, long time, is a high-flying passing attack. We've had weapons. We've had the Brandon Ayuk's, the N'Keal Harry's, and the Jalen Strongs of the last 10, 15 years, the Garrell Robinsons and the Rashad Rosses, the Derek Hagans of the 2000s. But this isn't, first of all, there's no receiver like that. I love Ricky Pearsall, but
sure,
he does not hold a candle to any of the receivers I just named. And you also don't have a quarterback right now, A, with experience, B, with that ability to even be a Mike Bercovici, a Taylor Kelly, a Manny Wilkins, or not a Rudy Carpenter. There was a couple other quarterbacks in that era, though. The ceiling is so low for these guys that it's going to have to be one of those things, Connor, where you set the expectations low and let these guys blow you away. So expect disappointment, you'll never be disappointed.
To quote Michael Jordan, the roof is the ceiling here. Now, my biggest concern is it's not even so much the players that we're losing or even the production a little bit on the field, but a very easy argument can be made that you're losing the two biggest pieces to your identity this last season, right? Number one being Rachaad White. He was the offense this last year. But number two, regardless of how A little bit up and down Jayden Daniels was this year. Definitely the second most important piece to this offense. Also the two guys that led your team in rushing. Both of them are just gone. What do you have to replace that with? Right? It doesn't mean the quarterback play can't get better. We just know that they're not going to rush nearly as much. Doesn't mean we are absolutely doomed at quarterback. We just don't have a firm answer in front of us. But now we're also our offensive identity is through the run game, right? That has to force other people to step up because it's not going to come in the passing game. It's just not, right? Unless an Andre Johnson can step up to be more of a consistent threat on the outside, it's just not going to come through the air. And so if you're giving a guy who is a little bit more one-dimensional and has to throw the ball, if he doesn't have guys to throw to, you better be able to run the freaking football, man. Like I'm already a little worried about the, not a little, I'm very worried about this offense going forward. If you become one-dimensional as a whole, quarterback can't throw to the guys on the outside because you don't have guys on the outside and they can predict you running the ball. Even if we did have a Rachaad White back, you're losing pieces on the offensive line. You're losing talent at the position. Are we going to be able to run the ball? I think that's a very fair question to ask until we actually see it on the field.
Yeah, I mean, right now, opposing defenses are just going to have to go in with that mindset of if we take away this run game, what is ASU going to be able to
force us to pass? Force us.
Exactly. Take away the only strength that you have and watch the whole thing crumble. Let's go ahead and wrap up this conversation and head to our final break. When we return, we're going to be talking about Arizona State basketball and their upcoming game against the Colorado Buffs. But first, a quick word from our friends over at BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both college and pro hoops. From the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile website or mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Connor, let's talk some basketball. So, Arizona State is headed to Boulder to take on the Colorado Buffs. We have talked about previously, it is put up or shut up time for the Arizona State Sun Devils. They need to essentially win out at this point if they want that chance to get anywhere close to the tournament. So
at least make their case, right?
Yes.
Because even winning out doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything at all. You're just trying to put it out there saying, hey, we might be able to win some games here and at least let us into the tournament. Maybe something good happens. Again, you're very much on the outside looking in. I would at least say your hopes are not fully dead yet, even after that loss to UCLA. So against Colorado, a team that is fifth in the overall standings for the Pac-12, just behind Oregon, who you have swept twice. But they are 10-7 within the conference, 18-9 overall. They've won 5 in a row. A very quality basketball team. Currently, they open up as 5.5-point favorites. Even with as well as ASU has played, that's very tempting, in my opinion, to be able to take Colorado. Who I'm just going to throw this out there. I do think Colorado does come away with this win. I think ASU will be hungry as a whole, and they do want to win. That being said, I just feel like at this point in the season, like if any of the players at all start to believe that maybe we just don't have a shot, they need everybody involved, right? So I'm not questioning maybe how much of the locker room is focused. Unless I can start to see them string together some of the wins here at the end of the year, I'm at least going to be a little worried about it. So 5.5 for Colorado. I think as of right now, I will be taking them to cover. Game's also opening up at 131.5 on the season. So as far as the overall scoring offenses for these teams, in terms of overall scoring, Colorado is also fifth at 70.3 points per game. Arizona State is second to last, just barely in front of Cal at 64.5. So overall, their scoring is a little bit essentially hitting that over. I think I'm going to take the over on this as well. So right now I'm taking Colorado to cover and taking the over at 131.5. Richie, what say you?
I think I'm going to do the same thing. So I like Colorado's chances, especially at home, to cover that 5.5-point spread against Arizona State. And as per usual, Arizona State never has, and I don't know if they ever will be, a team that plays very good against the spread. They do surprise us every once in a while. I don't think this is going to be one of those games. It's a tough situation going on the road against a team that definitely wants to find a way to prove itself the way that Colorado is hoping to do so. And they just want to squash any momentum that the Sun Devils have. They did lose that game against UCLA, so they are winners of 3 of their last 5 games, but they're no longer on that 3-game win streak. And Colorado's hoping to start a new losing streak for Arizona State. And we'll see if ASU can rebound. No pun intended there.
I was like, are you serious? Like, we're talking about basketball.
Exactly. We'll
just
see
gonna
if
throw rebound the general conversation.
Yeah, I'm better than you, so I don't know how else to say it. It's science, but we'll see, man. And then as far as the over goes, I feel like it's starting to become a safe bet for Arizona State basketball games to hit the over, because it feels like either one team's going to score a lot or it's going to be a high scoring game between the two of them. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to be like a close, low scoring game at this point. It feels like one team's going to win by 10 or 15, or both teams are going to put points up in the 70s or the 80s. And I feel like this is just going to be another one of those games where it's just, I feel confident that this is going to be a high scoring game, not so much a one-sided game. I could see this ending in the 70s for both teams.
Right. And I don't necessarily see Colorado as this offensive juggernaut, but I don't think they're going to struggle to score either. Right. They've got a couple solid players. Jabari Walker being their number one, scoring 14.5 points, one of their forwards. They have Evan Beatty putting up 11.6, and then Keisha Bartholomew who's putting up over 11. So really solid players for them. This team also, Richie, is the best 3-point team as far as shooting percentage goes in the Pac-12, shooting, I think, just over 36%. So this team is very dangerous overall from deep. But the over-under, in my opinion, that always comes down to ASU, right? Part of it being is they play decently well on defense, right? They seem to give even some of the better teams at times in the Pac-12 some scoring fits here and there. So if they can do that to a Colorado while they're struggling to score, the over looks like it's going to be very hard to hit. That being said, if ASU, not like this last game that they played where they put up 50, 55 points, whatever it was, if that's the ASU team that comes out, the over is not going to hit, right? Unless they just get absolutely blown out. But if they are the team kind of putting up like maybe mid 60s, I really do think that they'll be able to hit that over. But we'll see, right? Colorado's also fighting for something here, right?
Yep.
They're still on the outside a little bit looking in, because I really doubt at this moment that 5 Pac-12 teams are going to make the tournament. Again, I feel very safe about your 2 California schools and Arizona. But that being said, Oregon and Colorado are 2 teams really trying to fight to get in. Meanwhile, we're sitting here talking about ASU trying to find their way in, right? So with Colorado playing as well as they have, winning 5 in a row, I don't think it should be too difficult for them to take care of business against ASU. Again, it's just, what can Bobby Hurley do to galvanize his team? What can some of the graduating players or essentially players who have run out of eligibility, what can they do if they they're heading towards the end of the season? How can they get the locker room to all work together to come towards a victory, right? It has to happen one game at a time. Colorado's probably the toughest game that you have left remaining as far as the last 4 games go. If they can win this one, I think that's going to be the shot in the arm they need to be able to play these last 4 games out hot.
I would agree with you. So we'll take a look and see, Connor. I don't hate our chances in this game, but I'd be lying to you if I told you that I was overly confident in an Arizona State win.
Definitely nervous.
I am nervous, and I think that I'll have to be a Debbie Downer and take the home team in this one. I'm not confident about it, though. I do think that ASU can come out and pull out a win here. Like I said, I don't see this being a low-scoring and close game. I think this is either going to be one side's winning by 10 to 15 points, or both teams are going to be in that 70s range for points scored, and it finds a way to be close in there. I don't think this is a low-scoring game. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game one way or the other. I do think I'm going to lean towards Colorado, but I 100% believe that ASU has a chance in this game. And quite frankly, they need to win. We talked about it, Connor. They need to win out. This is where it starts. Go to Boulder. Prove that you're that team, man. You are that team, pal. Trust me. You are that team.
Well, there you go. We'll go ahead and talk about that game in a little bit more depth later this week. In our Friday podcast, we'll talk about that and recap it in a little bit more detail for you guys.
There you go. So until then, that's going to go ahead and end this podcast. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every single day. Remember that the Locked On Sun Devils podcast is free and available on all platforms, which includes, but is not limited to, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, pretty much wherever you get your podcast on an audio platform, as well as video format. If you want to go to YouTube and watch our beautiful faces, talk live, see our backdrops. For me, it's all this ASU stuff. For Connor, it's just a wall. But and sometimes you can hear our dogs barking or some squeaky toys going or us giving a dirty look at our animals because we're trying to record. That's always fun. So go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, 5-star ratio, whatever you want to do for this podcast. We would appreciate it. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter as well. Myself at RichieBrads36, Connor at CDrios, and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Again, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Go ahead and make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It is free and available on all platforms. And until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.